This is Sports and Torts with David Spada and Elliot Harris on TalkZone.com.
On the phone, we have former Florida State Seminole and Oakland Raider. He didn't get a chance to play in L.A. because they were just in Oakland back at that time. Fred Biletnikoff. How you doing, Fred?
I'm doing great. How about you guys?
Great. So I see you were born in Pennsylvania, and then you went to college at Florida State. How did you make the transition from Pennsylvania to Florida? How did Penn State avoid getting you to play for them?
Well, Paterno always told me he missed. But anyway, no, Ken Myers, who was coaching at Florida State at the time, was from Erie, Pennsylvania. He had an aunt and uncle that lived in Erie, Pennsylvania. And one of our coaches on the team, Ray Dombrowski, they were good friends. So basically that's how I ended up down at Florida State, because Ken came up and watched us practice in the spring. And he and Ray were good friends. So Ray recommended me to Ken. So Ken came out and watched us work out and everything. And that's eventually how I got down to Florida State through Ken Myers.
So it wasn't Burt Reynolds recruiting you?
No. No, it wasn't. I don't know. I might have wanted to stay away from him. He's too wild for me.
So Bill Peterson was the head coach, but the ends coach, I believe, was a guy named Bobby Bowden. Whatever happened to him?
That's what I always tell Bobby. I said, you would have never been famous if you weren't my receiver coach at that time. But yeah, Bobby was my coach at the time. You know, Bill Peterson, like you said, was our head coach, and you know, we had a pretty good coaching staff at the time, and a lot of pass-oriented type of guys in philosophy that all these guys were used to as far as throwing the football. And so they recruited a lot of us from not only, like for me, from Erie, but guys from New Jersey, New York, and Ohio. So they built up a pretty good core of guys to bring down there to do what they wanted to do as far as passing-wise. And Bill was always a good friend to Sid Gilman, who Bill spent a lot of time out in San Diego at the training camp with Sid to get the passing game that he wanted. And so that's kind of how everything fell in place there.
Because Florida State was one of the few teams that would pass the ball, because at that time it was basically, run from the I formation?
Oh, yeah. Exactly. Because, you know, when I first started them, my first years prior to them really installing the passing game, like we ended up doing like a pro-style offense, if you were a receiver away from the call, you lined up like a tight end. You lined up tight. So you had to do both work at not only as a wide receiver, but even lined up as a tight end. So you had to go through all the same drills that the tight ends had to go to and get beat up in there like they did. So it was pretty interesting. You know, a lot of people don't know that. You know, that's the way it was structured at that time. So my freshman and sophomore year, that's basically the type of offense we ran, which is, you know, like it was like a tight formation with one wide receiver split out wide and the other wide receiver lined up tight all the time. So it was a pretty interesting camps that you had to go through, summer camps and the games and all that stuff, because you really had to do all the blocking and all the drills along with your wide receiver drills. So it was you know, you got beat up pretty good a lot. You know, it made you a lot tougher though.
Yeah, I think, you know, it was like a couple of years earlier that, who was it, Pete Dawkins at Army, split out wide and as a flanker and things like that, and it was almost revolutionary.
Yeah, I think they called it the term the lonesome end when they put Pete out there. Yeah.
And nowadays, with all the spread offenses, you know, people don't remember those days when, you know, okay, the guy's a receiver.
Oh, now you have to. Yeah, you know, even like years ago when I first started with the Raiders, you know, you could get away with just, you know, having 4 wide receivers active, you know, on a roster for the games. But now, you know, nowadays, God, you probably have to have at least 6. so there's room for plenty of wide receivers in professional football nowadays, because they've really made it a point with the slot receivers in there, basically taking the place of a tight end or a back out of the backfield to run routes where you get up the field in the seams and across the field. So it's made it pretty interesting, and it's given a lot of players jobs. That's what it's really done. So, but there's a lot of good guys that play in there nowadays. So,
did you have a big decision to make when the Raiders drafted you, and also the Lions, where you wanted to play, or was it basically Raiders all the way?
when I made the move, from going from Erie all the way down to Tallahassee at that period of time, that was a big move for somebody to go to school that far away. And then at the end of the 4 years, when I got drafted by Detroit and drafted by the Raiders, I really had made up my mind that I was going to go out to Oakland and play out in Oakland, for Al. And so, so that wasn't really a hard decision for me. And the fact was that, I wanted to kind of get away from the cold and snow and all that type of weather and go out to California, which I had the opportunity to do. So I just figured, well, I'll take a shot and, sign with Oakland and then go out there. The passing game was really, was the AFL, so they were going to throw the ball a lot, which is right down, my alley from being in my last 2 years at Florida State, that we threw the ball quite a bit. And so that's the thing that really put it over for me as far as signing with the Raiders, going out there. And, of course, Al Davis's influence, too. So, but yeah, so that's basically how I made up my mind. So there wasn't any hesitation on my part.
So did you have to negotiate your contract with Al Davis and then have him coach you? How did that work?
No, he just gave you a contract, and it was already the money there, and he already signed it, so he just expected you to put your name on it. So, but no, there was a little bit of negotiation, but at that period of time, like Namath and Hewart and some of the other guys, Tucker Fredrickson, they had all gotten big contracts, and we even had a guy named Harry Shue that was drafted ahead of me in the first round, made pretty good money. But it was a decent contract at that time. It was a good enough contract. Till when I got to camp, all the veterans on the Raiders were all mad at Harry Shue and I because we were making so much money. So and we still had to go and get off-season jobs, so it wasn't that much. But yeah, so we even went through that period of time even back then. But no, there was no negotiation, and everybody at that time would give like 2 and 3 year contracts. So that way it worked out well for me.
Who was your quarterback? Was it Flores or LaMonica, or were they still going between the two of them?
Well, yeah, I started with Tom Flores and Cotton Davidson and Dick Wood, who had played with the Jets, and Cotton actually played at Baltimore with Johnny Unitas and Raymond Berry for a brief period of time. And so those 3 guys, with Flores being the starter, were on a roster as far as the quarterbacks. And then after that, Al brought in LaMonica and then Blanda, and then after that was Stabler. So yeah, so I had a chance to play with all the quarterbacks there, even like with obviously LaMonica and Blanda and Stabler were the main number of year guys that I played with, and Flores, and I played with a couple years. And then he had left, and then so it was just those 3. So all 4 of those guys really could throw the football, along with Cotton Davidson and Dick Wood. And Dick Wood came from the Jets.
Was there a quarterback that you enjoyed playing with more, that basically knew your tendencies and you worked better with? Was it Flores or LaMonica or Blanda?
Well, well, Flores, I was just a young kid. And I didn't really help Tom out. It was hit and miss with me. Okay, Tom throwing me the ball. But anyway, no, everything turned for me like when he brought LaMonica in, and we were throwing the ball more down the field, and along with Blanda, because Blanda had come from Houston, which they threw the ball 40, 50 times a game down there with the Oilers, and then with Kenny coming in. But no, I had a good rapport with LaMonica and Blanda and Kenny, because all three of those quarterbacks, we spent a lot of time on the field throwing passes, running routes, all that type of thing, So you weren't really the quarterbacks were used to seeing what all the receivers did because everybody worked with everybody. So you weren't just working with LaMonica. You were working with Blanda also, and then later on, when Kenny came and LaMonica left, it was Blanda and Kenny, and you spend so much time working with those guys on the field in practice, training camp, and during the season that, everybody kind of knew how all the receivers were as far as running routes and what they did, so it was a comfortable situation with all the guys that I played with, all the quarterbacks I played with.
Okay, so you're a rookie, 6 games into your pro career, you're not seeing any action at flanker. Do you wonder what's going on here? Am I ever going to get on the field and catch a pass?
Oh, no. No, there was a period of time when I was a rookie in the first preseason game I played in, and I was playing behind Art Powell and Bo Roberson at that time, who were really two, really outstanding receivers. And then into the preseason, I wasn't doing very well and dropping balls, and Al always wondered why he drafted me, and so I struggled for my first year, and then he traded Bo Roberson away and to allow me to be the starter across from Art Powell. So that's basically what happened there. And then into the season, the following season is when I had my knee torn up. So that wasn't very good as far as Al was concerned. But yeah, so I went through that, and so that's eventually how I ended up starting without trading Bo Roberson away.
Now, most people know you as number 25, but when you came to the Raiders, I think Claude Gibson had that number, and you were number 14. What point were you able to say, okay, I want to be number 25?
When Al let Claude go. when Al cut Claude, that opened up the number for me, and so I was able to get my college number. But I just Dick Romanski, our equipment guy, gave me the number 14, and it was probably the worst jinx number I ever had in my life. So once when Claude got let go, and the number 25 was open, that's how I eventually got number 25. So yeah, then everything started going better for me.
What was Super Bowl 11 like for you?
Well, it was something that, we had been, use the term, knocking on the door every year in championship games, losing close championship games, and always getting to the point where we had an opportunity to get to Super Bowls. But, we would, there was always something, it's almost like we were jinxed some way. Something always happened, like in Pittsburgh or wherever it may be. That just prevented us from getting to the Super Bowl all the time. So when we finally got there, we were a well-seasoned team. We had a lot of, we were all veterans at the time. We were all, I don't want to say, a lot of us were basically towards the end of our career, maybe another year or so after the Super Bowl. But the whole group that we had at that time kind of grew together for a good period of time. So we had a lot of veterans that had a lot of experience. So, we were always a pretty confident team as far as knowing what we could do and the players that we had, because we had a tremendous amount of great players on the team that had offense, defense, special teams. You could go down and look at all the guys, and there was unbelievable roster that we had at that time. But, going down there and playing in Pasadena, we had over 100,000 people, and beating, Minnesota, highly touted out of the NFC. It was pretty awesome. I'll tell you that. It was really good, and I liked it too because I have a lot of sentiment the way I was brought up in professional football because as I said earlier, when I first got to the Raiders, I was a young kid making at that time good money. Okay, more money than the veterans. So I knew how that went. I knew how the veterans were, and I really thought a lot about afterwards. After we beat Minnesota, about all those guys that I played with when I was young that were older, came from the NFL. They were NFL rejects from the NFL, NFL, the old NFL teams that were playing football in the AFL, and how they didn't have that opportunity to get to a Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl. So that really crossed my mind a lot because I had a lot of close ties with those guys, and they really brought me up in a tough way. and a very good, guidance as far as, being able to, play tough and, be a tough guy out there and really have a great work ethic and seeing what those guys did and how they worked, what it took to be a professional football player, especially we had a lot of veterans when I was a kid first coming to the Raiders on the team at that time.
At what point did you say to yourself, not only can I play this game, but I can be among the elite players in the league?
Oh, I guess. I don't know. I guess it came to the point where just prior to me getting hurt, I was starting to play pretty well, and doing some good things as a young kid, and going through the system and having my time on a bench and watching people play, and just having a good toughness, from my background in Pennsylvania and playing down at Florida State and being brought up in an atmosphere that I was brought up with the Raiders. And after I came back from that injury, then things started to fall in place a little bit more because now I knew that I learned that, this was a game where, if you get hurt and can't make it back, or if you get hurt and can't go out there on the field, you weren't going to play, and you had to have that type of attitude. And once I really understood that basically, football was a business, and that football game that you had, that was back when you were a kid in the backyards in Erie, Pennsylvania. That was football, and you enjoyed and playing it there. But now that you were into a business, and if you wanted to survive, you really had to go at it and work at it and be professional at it. So it was probably into my my third year that I finally really started coming around as a receiver and feeling that I could play with the people that we had on our team against the people and compete with the guys we had on our team at the receiver position, and then competing against the guys in the league, as far as who you're going to play against.
When John Madden was your coach, was he as crazy on the sidelines as he was on TV with diagramming plays and yelling and screaming?
Yeah, John kept it pretty active there. John was a great coach. He was, he was a great motivator. The one great thing about John that is always in my mind was that, he knew each player individually. He knew how to handle them individually, even though he had a whole slew of players that he had to handle. But he knew everything about each player on his team, and he handled you accordingly. If you needed to be, sort of say reprimanded about something, or have him be the head coach and be tough on you and demand things from you, he did. Then there were times where he was not easy on you, but wanted you to make sure that you were competing. And he was there as a coach and to make sure you did that, And, John was really unique in being able to be a head coach, handle that many guys in that manner, and really, really understand what he had as a team and what he had to do as a head coach. And John was tough. John was a tough guy to play for, but he was a fair guy to play for. You go out there, you practice hard. You go out there, you play, you spend time working on whatever position you're playing, working at that position. And John appreciated that. John was a terrific guy to play for.
Was there a defensive back that would give you more trouble than the rest of the guys in the league?
Oh, like guys like Herb Adderley did, because he didn't play against them very often. And, he was a type of really aggressive guy. Jimmy Johnson over at San Francisco was a very good player because he was tall and rangy, and you really, in that period of time, where, there were no rules basically, because, when those guys came up and played bump and run on you, guys like Jimmy Johnson, Herb Adderley, you were getting hit all the time. It was a physical game, and you you had to learn to be physical and how to handle the different styles of guys that you were playing at, against, because physically everybody, they were all different, different sizes, different speed, different quickness, and you had to understand, who you were playing against, so like Herb was always tough, and Jimmy Johnson was, and Jimmy Marcellus was a tough guy in Kansas City. Bobby Howard was a good player down in San Diego. So there were a lot of good players in the league that you played against when they played bump and run, and it was just a physical game. You just had to learn that. You just couldn't let somebody get out there and dominate you. You just had to keep fighting and fighting and fighting. But those guys are, I still have them in my memory. Believe me.
When we talked to former Raider players, every one of them said they love Al Davis. He was extremely loyal to his players. And it seemed like his coaches, too, because he went through head coaches a lot in the last 10, 15 years. But as the assistant coaches, he always had you, Willie Brown, the same assistant coaches, no matter who the head coach was.
With us, with Willie and I, Al had a philosophy about how he liked his receivers to be. And he knew I knew what he wanted in that, going in that area, and what would need to done with the receivers. And Willie was the same with the defensive backs. Al had a philosophy about defensive backs, how they should play, and Willie was the example, like I was the example with the receivers. So Al wanted to keep that consistent, because that was a big priority on our teams, was the defensive backs and the wide receivers. So he wanted a lot of consistency in there. So he kept Willie and I, fortunately for us, all those years being able to coach for him. And so that's basically, why Willie and I basically were there all those years, because of Al's philosophy on those two positions.
When you retired, did you say to yourself, I'm a Pro Football Hall of Famer someday?
You know what? I'll tell you. That's funny because even back when I got drafted, people were getting drafted, but people didn't make a whole big deal out of it. You know what I'm saying? You felt that if you got drafted by somebody, you were pretty fortunate. Now there's a whole program before the draft and guys knowing where they're going and all that stuff. Before their names even called and the teams are there, so things are kind of set in those first couple rounds, but. The Hall of Fame was basically the same way. You didn't really understand it. You didn't know really how you got there, what the procedure was of getting there. Only thing you knew is that, the writers in your area were basically the ones that promoted you, to the rest of the committee to be inducted in the Hall of Fame. So you had to depend. You had to depend on the writers in your area, promoting you. So when that happened with me, it was like, oh wow, But prior to that, every year you get to a certain stage in the voting and all that type of thing. So, when it happened to me, it was, it was like, you think about you're in a Hall of Fame, but then when you finally go there for the ceremony. It's a whole different perspective and a whole different outlook and a whole different feeling other than when you first find out you're going into the Hall of Fame. When you're actually there physically and seeing everybody that's already in the Hall of Fame and the guys that, fortunately there were guys that I still remembered and they were still alive that played for Cleveland, the Eagles, Pittsburgh, all that stuff back years ago when I was a kid. That I got to see, that I got to be around, and I never had a chance to be around before, and being in the Hall of Fame with them, it was just, just unbelievable. The group is, it's not a very big group, and that's the great thing about it. You're part of a very, very small elite group of guys, that, I don't know how much, I've always felt that, getting recognized as a guy in a Hall of Fame. Sometimes I think it's the recognition that you get from it is not enough. You know, I've always felt that way from after a number of years being in the Hall of Fame, and you get to see a lot of things go on. That being in the Hall of Fame isn't recognized enough of what that group means to professional football.
It seems like the Hall of Famers are a tight-knit group, because I was there last year, and the parties, and they're all sitting there and talking. But I just hope that some of these younger players realize what it means to be in the Hall of Fame, because a couple of years ago when Emmitt Smith went in and Jerry Rice, I think they kind of forgot, because they're charging $500 just for their autograph, whereas the other guys were charging $30, $40, where it was affordable for the fans. Well,
that's what you get with the times. That's what you get with agents. That's what you get with guys, new guys coming into the Hall of Fame, and they're not all that way. But the guys that are in the Hall of Fame already, heck yeah, they want people to enjoy it and be around, and you get their autograph. They don't want to hold people up. I mean, people can only afford so much, and they want everybody to have your autograph. What people charge, like you're talking about the lower money, that's fair. And sometimes it's you talk, well, we should be getting more, but you go in around this country, and you try to make things, if you're going and selling your autograph, you try to make it where everybody can afford it, and do it that way. But listen, I know we've run into it too, believe me. But yeah, no, I understand exactly what you're saying, and it's kind of put I don't want to say a bad taste in everybody's mouth, but guys are aware of it. Let me put it that way. And let me put it a nice way. Hall of Fame guys are aware of what other Hall of Fame guys do. So that's probably the easiest way I can put it.
Yeah. When you were a kid, did you have an NFL team that you followed?
Yeah, I followed the Eagles with Tommy McDonald. That was my guy, Tommy McDonald. He still doesn't believe me. I told him, listen, I said, when I went to Florida State, I said, I got number 25 because you were my hero. I love watching you play. That's why I got number 25. He said he didn't believe me, So he still hasn't sent me a signed jersey either. So whatever. Yeah. But no, that was my guy, Tommy McDonald.
What I don't get is Tom Flores. They keep promoting that Jimmy Johnson belongs in the Hall of Fame and Bill Parcells is going in. They're saying in 2013. Tom Flores won 2 Super Bowls. He was an excellent coach. Why is he not in?
In my thought, that's just a total embarrassment. That he's not in there, and the consideration for him is, I don't know. And when you see every year people's names coming up, there's a sprinkling of Tom around, with his name, which it should be right there at the top of the list, because even like last year's group that went into the Hall of Fame, it was a good group. It's from, guys from years before and everything, but, Tom deserves to be in that Hall of Fame without a doubt. That's a crime, really.
Is there one catch from your career that's a favorite of yours?
Yeah, when we played Miami in a playoff game in Oakland, I had one catch down in the corner of the end zone, right by the goal line against Tim Foley. That was a pretty good catch. I don't say that too often about myself. But I see that every once in a while, or see a picture of it every once in a while. I go, that's a pretty hell of a catch.
Now I'm looking at the website for the Biletnikoff Award, and it describes you as having deceptive speed. Is that deceptively fast or deceptively slow?
I don't know. When you have to pay bills, it all depends. When you have to pay bills and child support, you find ways to get down that field pretty quick. And so the deception is just the word everybody else uses. I always thought, hey, I'm fighting for my life out here, man. You better get going right now. But no, I don't know. It's there were times you look at yourself on film and you go and and see yourself moving a little faster than you think you could move. And I think it's just the fact of you just have that competitive spirit, and it's a gift that, when you're an athlete, every athlete has a gift. Some of us don't have all the gifts, but at times we're able to pick up enough to go forward and do something exciting and something good we're proud of ourselves at, and playing in football all those years. There's times where I looked, I said, oh hell, I'm not that slow, but other times I looked and said, oh hell, you are slow. so it juggled back and forth quite a bit in my career, believe me.
One last question. What are you involved with now that you're out of coaching?
Oh, you know what? We have our foundation that's for high-risk kids that we've had, and it's named after, it was started because of my daughter, Tracy, who was, murdered, back in 99. And so we started a foundation, with for kids, high-risk kids, for drugs and alcohol and abuse and, try to help out kids with single mothers and try to raise money for different groups to help kids go through, if it's alcohol problems or alcohol programs or, drug programs, whatever it may be. We donate a lot of money. We're not a big foundation. We have we make enough money each year with our different events. We have an event coming up April 29th. At Ruby Hills Golf Course down in Pleasanton, California, in 2013. Will be our 11th year golf tournament. So we just got done with the crab feed that we raised money in November down in the Bay Area, which was our 12th, I believe, crab feed. So it's going along really well. We have about 7 or 8 programs that we donate money to. We give anywhere between 4 and 5 scholarships out each year to kids that have come through, real trials and tribulations and made a mark in high school, got accepted to a college, and we go through a whole process of looking at resumes. It doesn't necessarily have to be an athlete. It could be just a student, female or male. And we help them out. We give $400 or $500, $2,500 scholarships out each year. So we're able to make an impact with a lot of kids and fund a lot of programs that that we've been doing for a number of years. So we're proud of our foundation and the way it's going. And my wife works year round on it. So we're going in a pretty good direction. And like every foundation, you keep working at it. It slowly grows and grows. So we're in a great position, and it's starting to grow a little bit more each year financially for us. That in a few years we're going to be able to actually buy our own house for kids and get a staff to run a nice program for kids.
That'll wrap up another edition of Sports and Torts on TalkZone.com with David Spada and Elliot Harris. I'd like to thank our guest, Corey Kellogg of the Chicago Crave of the Bikini Basketball Association, and Pro Football Hall of Famer, former Oakland Raiders receiver Fred Biletnikoff as our guest. I'd like to thank our executive producer, Dave Olson, and tune in again next time.